So I'm actually speaking at a conference here in San Diego, a little bit of, I guess, water, if you guys can see that behind me. Actually at the hotel conference area. I have 2 sessions actually speaking at. I'm going to try to capture both of them the best that I can. I'm a one-man camera crew here, and there's a lot of people, and I don't want to obviously inconvenience anybody or anything like that. I think there's also going to be some people taping for NutraIngredients, so if I can grab the film from them, it would be great. If I can't, unfortunately, you guys missed a good session. I have one on the influencer issue with Jim Stepani, and then I also have kind of like the state of the industry. I'm closing out the last day, talking about trends, talking about what's going on, actually giving kind of like a synopsis of the industry and hopefully providing some insights to the industry. I'm going to probably stay in my lane. This is mostly like science crowd overall, so I'm going to try my best to kind of give my kind of spiel in a way that they can understand and digest and actually use over just me talking about things that maybe the majority of the crowd does not care about. And I've kind of learned that over the years when I'm speaking, is that you have to know the audience. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Obviously on my YouTube channel, I could talk about whatever I want, and if you guys want to tune in, you guys can tune in, but these people pay, a lot of money a lot of times, so I got to talk about the things that are going to be the most valuable to them. So hopefully you guys enjoy the talks. Hopefully you guys enjoy the content here in San Diego. I'm going to miss the palm trees when I leave here, even though I do live in Austin, Texas, where it's warm, just like here. I'm obviously not going back to somewhere where it's snowy and cold, even though on this particular trip, I am going to go ahead right out to Denver, that you guys are going to see some other videos. Tune in on my channel if you guys are not subscribed. I don't know what you guys are doing. You guys should subscribe. But that's going to be some really good, different type of content with one of my really good friends, Steven Adelaide. You guys probably know him if you're in the sports nutrition world, but he's doing a totally different business now. So I'm going to be jumping over to Denver, a place I used to live before the YouTube days. Kind of head around Denver, but also check out his business, check out what he's doing. He's doing some really special things with quick box fulfillment, but you guys will see that in the next video. I want to be focusing here on the Sports Nutrition Summit by NutraIngredients-USA. Humbled that they would ask me to speak not on just one panel, but 2 panels. So let's head in there and check it out.
Josh, what do you think?
Clearly. Come on. We got this down.
No, to Jim and Sean's point, I think that in a perfect world you would have an influencer also be an expert. I think that having both sides of that is a kind of the perfect thing, the one you're trying to search for. The unfortunate thing, if you are starting a brand, odds are those aren't really out there, or they already own their own brands. So a lot of times you have to utilize the mix of the influencers to drive the demand towards whatever, towards a website, an Amazon listing, whatever that is. And then properly, you should have some expert, either through the brand being that expert, or an expert like a PhD, or somebody that has something that actually is going to be the conversion driver that ends up closing the deal. I think what ends up happening a lot of times is the brands, because of the lack of budget, they want the influencer to also be the expert. So they're pushing for certain content to make it a little bit mixed up. So you have these influencers that are saying things that maybe are incorrect, partly because they think that's what the brand wants them to say, where a brand should be really kind of telling them, hey, we really just want you to drive traffic towards a certain direction, and then we have a conversion driver like an expert that's going to bring it home for you. You don't need to do all the work. We just need you to do what you do best, and that is to bring your audience towards this, bring a new audience. And that's kind of the second reason why a lot of times it's just like, first reason is exposure, second reason is usually around getting new audiences. So if Jim had a few other influencers that were similar minded to him, similar background, had the same passions as him, they would have different audiences to bring traffic towards his brand, and then he could bring it home with all the other aspects of it. But it's about alignment. You have to align everything correctly. You get in trouble when you start kind of mixing it together. Mm-hmm. Because I think today, if you're starting a brand in 2020, it's tough. Like if Jim wasn't Jim before he started this, and he didn't have those years of experience, and he came out with just the products he came out today, there's 100 other people that have the same exact products. They have the same exact thing, and they maybe have a better marketing strategy to get a lower cost of acquisition, so they have the ability to price it lower, or they know Amazon better, or whatever it is. So there's a lot of things where you can't lead with maybe a formula. You can't lead. There's a lot of things that go in to cut through the noise. I think that starting a brand in 2020, it's a little bit different than even 5 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever. So I think there's still, it's a matter of influencers being used correctly, I think, and there's good and bad from it, but it's about making sure you're using it correctly.
Absolutely.
And I would say science absolutely sells, right? But I think it depends on your delivery of it and how much you emphasize that message. The problem is, and I remember hearing this at this conference last year, somebody had made the comment about how much more intelligent the consumers are today. I totally disagree. All right, what they do is they look for information better though, but they still don't know what information they're looking for.
So I sort of like to start off with kind of a general question. It's one that Josh gave me, but I think it applies to all members of the panel. We're talking about sports nutrition here, and that applies to athletes. But it seems like the application of these products, their reach in the marketplace is expanding. So who gets to decide what sports nutrition means, and what kind of what kind of consumers are we talking about? Josh, maybe you could, when you're putting it together in your head, maybe you could give us your ideas on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think from sports nutrition, and I think from a categorical standpoint, all the silos have kind of broken down, and that's mostly because of the emergence of ready to eat and ready to drink. So a lot of people coming into sports nutrition maybe don't have the same ideas of years of the caps, powders, pills days. A lot of millennials think of foods as supplements. So there is this kind of erosion of what is considered this very categorical sense definition of sports nutrition. And for you guys, why that kind of matters is, obviously doing studies and things, you want to do them on the athletes because you want to see what the incremental differences on some of your ingredients are. But you need to think about the consumer and how they're going to consume that ingredient or with the brand. Consumers are really the ones that are driving everything in the market at this point. They have a lot of options. They can pick whatever they would like. So you need to consider when you're developing ingredients or manufacturing processes or anything in this room, you have to kind of consider how is the customer or how is the consumer actually going to use the science or the ingredient or the delivery method or whatever that you guys are working on. You got to kind of consider that in this thing. It's no longer like forcing them to buy what you want them to buy. It's them buying what they would like because they have all the options out there. So you kind of have to consider that kind of throughout the whole chain.
I wanted to take that question and ask the group here a question. How many of you yesterday, chilly morning, participated in the 5K run? Okay, for those of you that did, how many of you consider yourselves athletes or users of sport nutrition products? 1, 2, 3, a couple. Why I ask it that way is because who defines sports nutrition? On some level, the consumer, right? I'm active, I run 3 5Ks every couple of months or something like that, that type of consumer. And on another level, there's a quote unquote argument within academia, if you will, and maybe part of the business world is sports nutrition only the college or professional leagues? Is it my little league son playing 3 games a week or something like this? So I have to actually say that my answer would be that the market kind of defines on one level, but then you have another level of people that are trying to pick through the hairs.
And so you mentioned marketing there, Chris, and that kind of drives to another question I wanted to put out there, and this is this question of to what degree are products out there in the marketplace and the claims made about them being driven by marketing considerations as opposed to connected to the science.
I'm going to take a completely counter argument on this. I kind of play in the dirt a lot in the industry in terms of more the long tail, so smaller brands. From my perspective, a lot of times it's marketing companies that drive this industry, not science companies. And I know that's going to upset a lot of people in this room, but to Chris's point, most of the industry on the sports nutrition side are going towards like transparent labels. So you can copy whoever's you want out of the top selling products as you want. That doesn't mean that you win. It's what you build off of that. People are looking for high quality products, but there's also a lot of people that are looking for economical products. There's this kind of bifurcation that's happening around high quality, and this is all across the world, anywhere in terms of like retail or anything. People are trying to either be on one side of the polar opposite or the other. It's either economical or they're kind of high quality. And I think that a lot of times what we're talking about here, we're always talking about the high quality and science and R&D and all those things, and I totally think that that's great, but there's this total opposite side of the industry that seems to be kind of driving a lot of things as well, based around Amazon and like non-branded search terms, and a lot of those companies maybe are never going to be on anybody's radar because they're too small, but each of those like 10,000 cuts take a little bit away from the Glambias, take a little bit away from the Bellring brands, because consumers are looking for those things in a different way than they used to. Now, I totally agree around content and adding value and doing all those things, but I think there's a lot around like just this other side of things.
So that sort of drives to another thing that we're going to run out of time here, unfortunately, because there's a lot of things we could talk about. But we're talking about the consumer here, so now we need to talk a little bit about how they're purchasing these products. So there's been very fundamental changes in ongoing changes in retail. And I know, Josh, you've talked about this. I'm sure, John, you'll have something to add. So, Josh, tell us from your point of view. I mean, retail isn't dying, but it obviously is changing in a big way.
Yeah, John kind of made up the point about bodybuilding.com having like that checklist and everything, but the level of influence bodybuilding.com has today is much less than it had a few years ago. Same with GNC, same with Vitamin Shop. Those are no longer like the only place you can go to buy like specialty supplements. You can go to either a mass retailer, the food, drug, mass type of consideration, or you're looking at kind of the other side where I was just kind of talking more where a lot of the long tail brands are at on Amazon or direct to consumer, where there's a lot less in terms of, those are going to be your like self-directed consumers. A lot of cases, you're not having somebody need to hold their hand, which creates a lot of issues in terms of maybe people taking advantage of that, quality, and I know there's going to be people that can talk about that a little bit more, but I think that is a consideration because there's no longer like the gatekeepers that used to be there. There's kind of a few clicks of the mouse, you can start a supplement brand and it's kind of going.
A couple points here, Hank. Used to be the case that Google was the search engine of preference by the consumer. Today, the search engine of preference is Amazon. And that's both perhaps good in one sense, but scary in another, and I'll explain why. You may think that every product that's available on Amazon, particularly third-party products, have been carefully vetted. Well, when I was back at bodybuilding, I had the opportunity to make a little trip up to Seattle to meet with the Seattle District Director for the Food and Drug Administration, she and her staff, and gave Miriam a list of 138 different SKUs available that morning on Amazon's website, third-party products. Each of these SKUs contain SARMs. Others contain pro-hormones. Others contain substances banned by the Food and Drug Administration that were not approved as dietary ingredients. And you know what Miriam said to me? What do you want me to do with this information? I suggested she might want to do her job. Nothing ever happened by her office towards Amazon. And some products are still available on Amazon's website that contain ingredients that are not permitted. So as the consumer has migrated their preferences on the search engines, that's affected bodybuilding, that's affected other companies in the e-commerce space. We need to also be sensitive to the fact that the big gorilla in the room is not doing the full job they should to protect the consumer.
And how does that affect your business, Chris? Because I know you're one of these brands in this tail, not necessarily representative of exactly what Josh was talking about, but you're trying to carve out a niche for your products in this tremendous amount of noise, right?
It's challenging, extremely challenging. Especially now you have a lot of influencers out there. They're starting their own brands or they're promoting other brands. And you often see it. You're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, then you're just getting these impressions from these other brands that you've never heard of before. and you know that everybody else is getting out there, and you're trying to bellow your voice out there louder than everybody else with direct content. So it's definitely a challenge. We are, with bodybuilding.com and through brick and mortar like your GNCs and vitamin shops, the landscape has definitely changed, and we're having to change our protocol because of it as well. At one point, content was our king, and it still is. But we are, having to change our landscape as well to scale behind social marketing, to be one of those guys that's putting out impressions as well. But we just have to differentiate ourselves with that impression having content as opposed to just marketing.
One thing that I sometimes find befuddling, but this is the nature of today's society, is that we'll have some type of YouTube star that announces he or she is coming out with a protein drink, and they start this protein drink, and overnight they're already doing $3 to $5 million in business because of their own followings. That's a disruptive kind of business technology to everybody. I don't know how many people here are as lowbrow as me and occasionally watch Ridiculousness on MTV. Right, so I'm blanking on the former skateboarder that runs that TV.
Rob Dyrdek.
So Rob Dyrdek through Momentous in his first year is doing over $5 million a year on his Momentous brand that you can't find anywhere. You can only buy through social media channels. So it's amazing to me the quick turn that somebody that has an influence and a following can either go to some company and say, can you private label me this, or they make up their own, Rice Krispie recipe. But I think as an industry, that's also something that has to somehow be considered or talked about. And
purchasing, reviews matter. You can't just hide behind your name. People are searching for non-branded search terms. They're searching for pre-workout. They're not searching for Cellucor C4 or something like that. They're searching just for a basic non-branded search term. So there has a bunch of different things in that algorithm that ranks somebody up higher that brands have to consider. It's not just off of you're the leading energy supplement in the market. That no longer is the only reason why someone purchases. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to help support me, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button on this video. If this is the first time you've been introduced to my videos, would love for you guys to be a part of my community by subscribing to my channel. I upload several videos just like this weekly. And if you guys want to connect further outside of this platform, I do include all of my social media links down below. I just want to thank you guys again for your time. Hopefully I gave you some value in return, and we'll see you guys on the next video.